EntrePass versus Employment Pass. Now, this will be the topic of interest for few of you because there is some confusion as to when the EntrePass can be used and when Employment Pass can be used, and what are their respective roles, because there are similarities as well as differences in these two passes. So, let's first have a look at the similarities. So EntrePass can be used for applying and relocating to Singapore. So if your EntrePass is approved, you can incorporate a company in Singapore and relocate here. Same way, you can incorporate a company and apply for employment pass under that company, and once approved, you can again relocate and manage that company from Singapore. You can use both these passes to incorporate your own company with up to 100% shareholding. You can use both these passes as an entrepreneur. Now, employment pass also has other use, in the sense many organizations use employment pass to bring qualified foreign employees to work in Singapore. But at the same time, employment pass can also be used by entrepreneurs to set up their own companies and for relocation. And there is no specific requirement to have a specific percentage of shareholding in your name in either of these passes. Now, having seen this, let's have a look at the differences. So to qualify for EntrePass, you must be classified into either of these categories. What that means is you must be able to show a proof that you are an entrepreneur, innovator or investor. The detailed explanation of this I have already given in my EntrePass guide, so you can check that. Once you satisfy one of these requirements, that is what all is required. There are no other additional requirements. So basically, when it comes to EntrePass, the authorities are asking two questions. Do you have a viable business idea? And has that business idea been vetted or appreciated or approved by any third party who is an approved venture capitalist, incubatee, or the university in Singapore? So here the emphasis is on third party approval, and which third party? A reputed third party like a venture capitalist or a research organization or an incubatee. So if you satisfy this requirement, you will get EntrePass. There are no other requirements as to the education or work experience or anything. Whereas on the other side, if you look at employment pass, the focus is primarily on your educational background, previous work experience. When you are incorporating a company as a self-promoter and applying for employment pass, the general practice is to have at least 30,000 Singapore dollars by way of capital and a minimum salary of $6,000 to yourself as the promoter of the company. So while employment pass absolute minimum salary level is 3,900, as a promoter your employment pass may not get approved at that salary level. So the recommended salary is 6,000 plus. So on the employment pass side, the focus is primarily on you and your background. Whereas on the EntrePass side, we have seen that it is more for acceptance or recognition by a third party. So now, having seen this, let's have a look at some of the scenarios and let's understand where each of this scenario will fit in. So scenario number 1 is as follows. A person in shipping industry with 10 plus years of experience wants to start his business and is starting a business of fleet manpower supply. He is a graduate by education and worked in shipping industry for 10 plus years. So here you will notice this person may not be able to satisfy the criteria for EntrePass, because in the business of fleet manpower supply, which is kind of a normal business, I mean it's not a tech startup. So in this business, getting a venture capital funding or incubatee certificate is going to be difficult. So most probably for him EntrePass is not a right path. He won't be able to satisfy that condition. Whereas he already has education, he has 10 years of previous experience in the same industry. Possibly he can bring in 30,000 Singapore dollars by way of capital and give himself 6,000 Singapore dollars salary. So for him the right path will be employment pass. The next scenario is of two young programmers. They attended some XYZ incubatee program in Singapore. Previously, they had only 2 years of work experience and their project was appreciated in the incubative program. They also got a certificate giving a approval for EntrePass. So obviously, as you see, they already have satisfied the requirement for EntrePass, and most probably they will not be satisfying the requirement for employment pass as a self-promoted company, because they will not be able to possibly bring in significant capital and their salary requirement might also be low. Since they satisfy EntrePass conditions, EntrePass is a option here to incorporate. Now in this scenario, Michael, a recent graduate, he wants to start the business in e-commerce and he wants to relocate to Singapore. Unfortunately, he does not have any VC funding, nor he has attended any incubative program or got any certificate. So if you see, in both the cases, he is not satisfying the requirement. He is not experienced enough to be qualifying under employment pass, and at the same time for EntrePass he has not satisfied any of these conditions. So he won't be able to get either of this. So the best course of action for him is to try to get an incubative certificate by attending some accelerator program. And moving on to the last scenario, John is educated from a top university in his country. Additionally, he has 10 plus years of experience in banking. Recently, he also attended an approved accelerator program in Singapore, and now he wants to set up his IT startup and relocate to Singapore. So if you see, in this case, John is actually satisfying conditions for both these passes. He has attended approved accelerator program and he has got the certificate, and at the same time he also qualifies for employment pass. He has a good educational qualification and 10 plus years of experience. So in this case he can go for either of this. So now the question comes of the recommended strategy. So if you qualify for EntrePass, then that should be your first option logically. When you get vetting from a third party, the approval of EntrePass is more or less confirmed. Moreover, you don't have any specific restriction as to how much salary you should get, and there are no specific restriction as to how much capital to introduce. So in that sense, EntrePass becomes more flexible. But in my general opinion, if you qualify, EntrePass is your first option. Now, if you are from any average day-to-day business sectors, for example, you are from import and export, or you are into management consultancy, or you are into training businesses, so these businesses will not typically qualify for EntrePass, because EntrePass has got a requirement to have funding or incubating or all those things. So if you do not qualify that, then obviously your option is to go for employment pass. However, ensure that you can meet the capital and salary requirement, and also ensure that you have necessary work experience to qualify for the employment pass. So one question I always get is, if I want to incorporate a company and apply for my own EP, then is it recommended that I should have less than 30% or less than 50% shareholding in it? So some of the consulting organizations in Singapore have this kind of advisory. But in reality, this is not true. There is no relevance of how much shareholding a person holds in a company, and it does not have any bearing on the approval of his EP. In fact, introducing somebody else into your company to take majority of shareholding can jeopardize the thing. When you apply for your employment pass, government authorities will look primarily at your background and company promoter's background, which in this case happens to be your background. Now if you add somebody else, in fact they may find that the background of the company is not suitably strong. So I don't recommend doing anything like this. In our experience, even with 100% shareholding, you will be able to get employment pass if you qualify. So in summary, EntrePass and employment pass are different in some aspects when it comes to using it for your own promoted company. I hope the difference is clear to you now.
Thank you for watching this video. This video was brought to you by Epica Consulting Singapore. Subscribe to our channel today to get notified when new videos are posted.